In this video, I'm going to show you my writing process. So I'm in a situation where I have to create a presentation, and I already have an idea of what my presentation is about. I know what my project is, but I have to go from my project to creating the presentation. Before I get started, I always have a piece of notebook paper beside me and a pen and pencil and something to eat and some water, because you don't want to have to get up and interrupt your process by getting a piece of paper, or if you get hungry needing to get up. So I recommend you start that way. So I have my piece of paper, and then I'm on my computer, and I'm going to show you what I do on my computer. So first, I have to basically remember what my idea is, because I need to look back at what I'm supposed to be talking about to know what my presentation is going to be about. If you haven't already done this, I recommend that you write just like a brief summary of what your project is. So this is a summary of my project. So yours doesn't need to be this complex, but I start with like the main point. Creativity has been a topic of interest to writing centers for some time. So you would start with just a sentence that like introduces what your project is about. And then the second sentence, yes, yet within the context of brainstorming and generating ideas, dissent, expressions of disagreement, debate, or criticism is an area sometimes overlooked. So this is me saying what the problem is, or like why there's a need for my project. So you'll want to do the same thing. Have a sentence that says what the problem is. And then I say, however, recent group creativity research points to the advantages of dissent and freedom of debate and holds key implications for tutors and writers. So then you want to have a sentence that says, like, however, there are several ways to address this problem. Then I say, but what does it feel like to experience dissent when generating ideas? This interactive workshop engages participants in this question through group brainstorming activities. So notice now you would say something like, this project does X through Y. So group brainstorming activities is really concrete. You need to say how you're going to do it, like what's the specific method. So for example, if you're doing a project on addressing the diminishing bird population, you would say something like, this project seeks to preserve bird populations in Ligonier, Pennsylvania through a 6-month-long campaign in grocery stores to get people to buy supplies that can help with bird preservation. And then you would have another sentence that spells it out more. So like, I have participants will challenge assumptions about brainstorming, practice novel approaches, map out practical applications. So you might say, this project includes 3 parts. The first one is for spring, which will be this. The second is for summer, which will be this. The third one is for fall, which will be this item. So I recommend that you write down that summary if you haven't already done so, because once you write down that summary, you basically have an anchor for creating your presentation. So now you can look back to that constantly. And what I would even do is separate out your screen if you have the ability on your computer to do, or if you have dual monitors. You can go like this, and actually I need to, hold on, I have to bring up my other window because MacBooks are a little different. Okay, so I have my summary on the left-hand side, so I can keep looking back at it, and it's like my anchor for knowing what I need to put in my presentation. And then I have my presentation on the right-hand side. So I use Google Slides, and what I do every time I start a new presentation is I basically open an old presentation that I have. So you might not have former presentations, so you should use the template that somebody provides you with or that you found on the internet, and you should use that as kind of your template. So for example, this is a workshop that I gave in May, and you'll notice what I did is you just go to File, and then you go to Make a Copy, and then I basically renamed it. So I'll say something like, what I'm working on today is my IWCA presentation. Excuse me. Ooh, excuse me. So then I have a copy, and then you can do whatever you want in here. So I actually already did that, and I started my presentation. So assume I made the copy of this presentation from May, and then this is my new copy for IWCA. So then I just kind of go through it and I update it. So actually I'll show you. So like in this presentation I had, I'll make this bigger. In this presentation I have a title slide where I'll just introduce myself. You can see I include my notes in the bottom. So I just say, who I am, what are my research interests. So you might just give a little context about who you are, introduce yourself. And then I like to start a presentation with like a question that engages the audience. So I have a question here that's thought-provoking. So if you're doing something like how to help the bird population, you might say something like, you might have heard that this % of birds have decreased in the population in the past 5 years. But is this decreasing population inevitable? And if not, what is it that we can do? Then I usually have a problem slide. So this sets up, it has like a more explicit question. So how can writing teachers and administrators have the greatest impact in their communities? So this was, again, the presentation I did in May. So I updated it. I have the same sort of thing. I need to still update my notes, but I changed the title slide. And then the problem I'm dealing with in this presentation is how can writing centers foster creative thinking during brainstorming? So see, I just kind of updated it. And then I don't really need this slide in my new presentation, so I skipped to this one. So this is just like an outline. So this is what I'm going to do in the first part of the presentation, second part, and third part. So then I updated that. So in the first part of this presentation, they learn the advantages of dissensive and freedom to debate. So like in your presentation, if you're doing something on bird populations, you might say like learn about the problems facing bird populations and some preliminary efforts people have made to address this problem. And then mine's interactive, so you might not have a presentation that's interactive, but here I have practiced new approaches to idea generation. So you might then say, you might just say something like, learn one strategy for addressing the bird population problem, or something like that. So you might just have 2 parts, but that I kind of like to do an outline, and then my presentation I say, here's what we'll do today. You'll learn about this, you'll do this, and then everybody knows what to expect. Then I like to kind of use a slide for each part. So here's my first part, which is going to be about the words, this is going to be about, again, this first part, the advantages of dissensus and freedom to debate. And then within this, I have some different slides that pertain to it. Okay, so you don't have to have all these slides, but notice that I just have like one idea on each slide. So you might just have section 1, what is the problem? And you might have a couple slides outlining the problem. And if you get lost, you just look back to your summary, right? So in my summary, let's see, I said that I was going to, I introduced my topic. The problem is that brainstorming is sometimes overlooked in writing centers. So, okay, I have to make sure I have this sense of the problem. And then I'm going to share recent group creativity research. So in this section, I would, right here, I'm going to share what the creativity research says about dissensus and debate. And then I might use some different slides. I might even define some key terms. So this is kind of like a general outline, but the next step, so once I have my slides updated and I know that I'm kind of following what my summary is for my project, the next step that I do is I actually come up with speaking notes and I time myself. And then as I'm doing that, I'll do a draft of speaking notes and I use a Post-it card. But you can just use a blank piece of paper too, but I would number it. I can show you that separately. But at this point, now you have a presentation, but your job isn't done because now you need to figure out what you're actually going to say. And as you're figuring out what you're going to say, you're going to maybe need to revise your slides. But what I wanted to show you right now is the writing process for going through and coming up with a presentation. And the main takeaways for this are to first make sure that you actually write out a summary of what you're talking about, something like this, so that you know what you are doing in your presentation and so that the presentation's easier to write. Then I recommend that you just copy a current template and you just update the template. So again, you can make a copy of a former presentation, especially one that you got good feedback on, or if you haven't presented in a while, you can ask somebody for a good example, or you can even look up examples online. So for example, I could go to google.com/images and say your presentation is like a pitch presentation template. So then you can look up different examples of what that might look like. So like here you see some different slides and different examples. So you can look up some different examples that way. Another thing it's called a pitch deck. So whenever you're pitching an idea, so you might look at some examples here. And so here, like you can see, this is the title page. You can see they have a slide about what the problem is and then how the problem's solved. And then these are like some specifics, like what are the particular projected outcomes of the project, that sort of thing. So it's really simple. You really just need to introduce yourself, state the problem, state the solution, and then give a few specifics of like how you're going to do it and how it's going to help address the problem. But again, using a template is really helpful. All right, so that's how I come up with